Welcome back, viewers, to another Hailing Frequencies. Not a good, bad, and batshit this time, but rather a ranking of all the episodes of Lower Decks Season 4, from our least favourite to our most favourite. I am one of your hosts, Stu.
And I'm your host, Alastair. Stu, how's it going?
It's going really, really well, thank you. I'm out of sequence with my uniform, but I thought, I've got to wear the Lower Decks uniform for this.
It's a good cause. Represent, yes. Lower
Yeah.
Decks for
Plus,
season
I've not
4 has got to be done.
the live action version hasn't had much of an airing this year, because we haven't done too many episodes of Livingston since I got it. And while I did order it to arrive for Birmingham, destination trek that we went to, it didn't arrive in time. So,
Oh,
hey, one of those things. It'll be there for next year at least, which I'm really looking forward to.
absolutely.
Shall I tell you what else I'm really looking forward to?
Please do.
Hearing your rankings of the episodes of Lower Decks Season 4. But first, do you know what? Right. So, red alert, spoilers. This episode will contain spoilers for basically the entirety of Season 4 of Lower Decks. If you haven't watched it yet, I mean, what's up with you? But but
Also,
also,
clicking on a video called Lower Decks Season 4 in review, or whatever the exact title is, and then expecting that we just vaguely spoiler-free talk about the season is perhaps a touch optimistic on YouTube. So, yeah, brace yourself for spoilers, please.
oh, that's a much better way of putting it than the insulting way I almost just said. Thank you. We love our viewers. We love them, but yeah, if you don't want spoilers, yeah. First, before we get into it, I mean, what a fantastic season of television.
Yeah, if you don't want spoilers and you need to go and watch the season, well, the good news is spoiler free that you're in for just a really good season of Star Trek. Okay, now go away.
No, don't go.
Have fun. Yeah. The rest of you who are sticking around to have seen probably all of, or at least most of season 4, I'd imagine at this point. Yeah, what a great season this was, and I say that very pointedly, not just to Lower Decks, but of Star Trek in general. I think there's a lot of what makes a great season of Star Trek here in this one for Lower Decks, and as a result, trying to break down favorite episodes was a really difficult task because they're all good, and it did wind up surprising me where I fell on a bunch of them. So, looking forward to talking over with you, Stu.
I'm intrigued to hear what method, or was there a method? Was there, was it pricking of thumbs? How did you come up with your, without telling us where anything sits at the moment?
Yeah, good question. So, I think we're a little bit later doing this review than we had intended to be, and this is because Stu and I have both had a pretty busy couple of weeks. So, one thing that I did, not having the time to go back and do a full rewatch of the season, was to take a reread of episode synopses, because I often think when doing rankings and stuff for these things, it's very easy to forget B plots in stories, and particularly in Star Trek, the subplots can actually be a lot of fun and be just as memorable as the A lines sometimes. So went back, did a big reread of what we'd had this season, jogged my memory on anything I was a bit hazy on, and went from there really. I like to try and sort of have a rough idea of like what might be in the top half, what might be in the bottom half, pull a couple of ones that instantly resonate as being really good, get them on the top half of the list first, and do the same for bad, and then slowly try and work to fill in the middle there. So I got there in the end, but yeah, it was pulling teeth trying to get the difference between whether one was better than another in some cases for this. What about you, Stu? What was the methodology for you?
So I did rewatch them. I binge watched them in a day, back to back. Oh, yeah, the humanity. Um, and I took it like I would watch an episode and I would ascribe it almost a random, not quite a random. Yeah, I think roughly where in my top 10 do I feel that would sit at this moment. And then as other episodes come up, I go, well, was it better? Was it worse? And the numbers would sort of shift around as it went on. But actually, most of them, I actually didn't make as many adjustments as I was watching as I thought I would. They most ended up pretty much where I thought, or like next to where I originally thought they would be. So yeah, um, I I I did it by gut feel, so I didn't do a technical analysis or or anything like that. Just a real gut, which I felt I enjoyed most. Um, Speaking of which, I think it's worth mentioning, even our number 10s, which is the bottom of the list, I know it's true for me. I suspect it's true for you. I still really, really, really enjoyed.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. Yeah, if we're putting things at number 10 here, we're not saying they're bad. We're just saying that when you took this amazing season and attempted to put it into list order, they just wound up at the end of that. But they were still very enjoyable Star Trek for sure.
Shall we dive into more top 10?
I'm so
See what we've
interested.
got
I
the
just I
same.
because we have a bit of a history of occasionally picking very similar picks when we do favorite things and stuff like this in the various Frasier and Star Trek related bits and pieces that we talk about together. But I have a feeling that until we get to the top of the pack here, it's going to be a bit of a jumble for both of us. So let's get started and see where we land. So, Stu, what was in your number 10, the bottom, as we say, not the bad part of the rankings, but just the bottom of the rankings for this season? What was episode 10 for you?
In at 10, as they say on the Pop Weekly charts. This won't be surprising to you, Alastair, especially given our review of the episodes. It's a few badges more at
Mm.
number 10. Yeah, I'm not a Badgie fan. I don't dislike Badgie, but I'm a yeah. If we didn't get any more Badgie, I wouldn't feel like I was missing out on anything. Um, it was a good episode, but yeah, that was mine. What about yours?
I surprised myself with this, but it was the truth for me. Old Friends, New Planets, the season finale, I felt like a lot of the big storylines got wrapped up more meaningfully earlier in the season. I felt that that final episode had a lot of getting from point A to point B to point C because you needed to get from point A to point B to point C to put a little ribbon on some of the stories, and I just that 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 was enough to knock it down the rankings. This was a really busy season for character development and seeing old favorites come back. And unfortunately, Old Friends, New Planets, the final episode for me, with that feeling of a little bit of treading water, of crossing the finish line because there was a finish line there to be crossed. I thought it did that job well, but it maybe wasn't the most exciting as a result.
Interesting, interesting. And normally you'd expect a series to end on an upswing, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. We're used to the big Star Trek cliffhangers of old being some of the best episodes of a show, or at very least, kind of a very satisfying wrap up of things. But I think that the wind was taken out of the sails by certain things being wrapped up quite far in advance this season, and there not being a huge need for revisiting or adding more of a sense of conclusion in this episode. We talked, I won't dwell on it much here, but we talked before about how Nick Locarno's appearance as the mastermind behind the ship attacks felt a little bit rushed, and I think that didn't do this finale too many favors either. So that was number 10 for me. But what about number 9, Stu? What was just avoiding that bottom spot for you?
Number 9, and this one really surprised me that it ended up as low as it did. But it's just that I loved this episode so much, but there were just other things in other episodes that just elevated them. Something borrowed, something green.
Really?
That's shocked you, hasn't it?
I am shocked. That is
I shocked
really
myself, I've got to
yeah,
say.
that is really interesting for me, Stu. What led you to make that ranking?
It literally wasn't so much anything about the episode itself. It's just that there was, like I say, things in other episodes that I just felt there was more to it. I say I love the episode. I love seeing Orion culture and everything like that. I did feel I think I talked about this on when we reviewed the episode, that we've actually seen more of Orion culture than is claimed in the episode. But I mean, but it was fantastic to see. I feel really mean putting it at number 9.
It's a really tough season to break down. So yeah, and I think it makes it more. It's probably more interesting for both of us and you watching at home if we don't just have identical lists. So nice for me to be surprised, and quite clearly my number 9 is not something or is something green.
Is this completely thrown it now? Nothing's going to be the same for us.
I feel like we're going to have some similarities at least. And this one, actually, my number 9 is not too far off because I do have a few badges more at number 9 for me.
Right.
I thought they did enough with the AI theme in this episode of Guji coming in and the various badgy spin-offs kind of broadening the joke a little bit of badgy. I mean, it's just always great to hear Coombs back doing another Star Trek performance as well. I think we talked about a few badges more. It was definitely not perfect Star Trek by any means, but it was entertaining enough for me to elevate it just above the bottom spot for this season.
I think that's absolutely fair. What about your number 8? I've gone first on the last two.
Okay. The pressure. Number 8, I have empathological fallacies. I really now this may be somewhat of a surprise because, needless to say, I really loved the T'Lyn story in this episode. This is kind of her episode this season where she has the most to do really, and a turning point for her. However, I was not sure about the Betazoid diplomats, and I mean I think we talked about this in our review of the episode. There's some parts of this episode feel a bit contrived. I didn't particularly enjoy Boimler's time with the security team. There were a couple of good gags in there, but it didn't grab me as something that I thought was really, really hilarious. So overall, in spite of loving the T'Lyn elements of this episode, the rest of the bits and pieces around the sides of that, I think, just don't fit together quite well enough for me to put it any higher than number 8 in this season. What about yourself? What was it number 8 for you?
So for me at number 8 is empathological fallacies.
Hey, we've got our first match.
We've got our first match at number 8. Basically, for all the reasons you've just said. I don't feel I can add anything, which is great.
Excellent. Our first point of agreement in
Absolutely, and we
the
are
ranks.
absolutely in agreement on it. I mean, I did particularly like the idea of the sort of Bajoran Secret Service kind of. I like the idea of that. That might be something that crops up in Livingston now at some point. We will see.
Hey, spoilers. Go to Red Alert for Livingston spoilers.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like you say, you used the word contrived, and it's the perfect word. Yeah. What about 7?
In at number 7 for me was Tuvix. I really loved the Voyager nostalgia and homage in this episode. I loved that it was crammed full of references. And I think that really carried this episode up the rankings to this point for me. I think I've said many times in reference to Tuvix that I really feel like the Tuvix debate, the Tuvix meme, the Tuvix kind of joke is very well trodden in Star Trek fandom at this point. So I was left a little bit cold. I felt like this episode I mean, it's Lower Decks. It does parody very well. It played it for laughs. It sort of raised the philosophical questions around it and promptly kind of dropped them without really expanding in any sort of profound or meaningful way on them. And that was fine for me. I could live with the memory of many Tuvix debates and discussions and whatnot of days gone by in return for getting some of that sweet Voyager nostalgia of having holograms being morose about their dead wives and seeing Chaotic on screen again and whatnot. So Tuvix number 7 for me. What about you, Stu?
I miss my wife. It's not Tuvix for me. And again, unsurprisingly to you, no doubt, Tuvix scored higher for me, pretty much for the same reasons it scored lower for you. But no, for me, and again, this was quite a shock that it came in so low. But Path Ferengi's Heart Place. Worth it just for the look on your face there, I think.
Set phasers to stun. Stu, what led Path Ferengi's Heart Place into the lower half of the standings?
So part of it is, I think, as a story, it kind of didn't really add anything to the overall season arc. It just really didn't add anything. It didn't take, for example, Tandy and Rutherford's relationship to a new place. It didn't.
Oh, but it teased us so well, Stu.
Did it? I thought there's been more teasing in other episodes, like the one where I forget the name of the episode where Tandy thinks that Rutherford's got some sort of virus with his implant and he's trying to, shoot him with a, even though he's gone on another day. I thought that was more cementing that suggested more of an underlying. This just suggests, well, yeah, they're friends, and it was weird.
Totally understand where you're coming from. Totally understand where I didn't land in the same place, but I don't struggle to see where your line is coming from there.
But I've got to say my biggest and right, I'm going to use the word disappointment. I was not disappointed with the episode. I loved the episode, but I did have a disappointment in the episode, in that there was no reference to Garth Marenghi's Dark Place in the actual episode.
Yeah, it would have been really nice to get. Yeah, I mean, I think when we saw the episode names, we were both pleasantly surprised that it was, that classic Channel 4 sitcom was getting a name check in a Star Trek show. But we were also kind of mystified as to what the reference, if any, would be, and whether there would be sort of like supernaturally or horror themes maybe or something. But in the end, as you say, nothing at all. And I can agree with you that was a disappointment.
Just even having Matt Berry in doing a
Yeah.
cameo voice would have, but just the name, just for the sake of the name, just I feel
Yeah.
like I've been teased.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so Parth Ferengi's Heart Place number 7 for you.
yeah. What's your number 6?
Number 6 for me was Caves. I thought Caves was a really fun episode, and I thought it was a nice bonding episode for our core team, and that there were a lot of great moments in it. And yeah, all of that kind of added up to not quite putting it into the top half of the standings for me, but a really solid kind of middle of the pack episode for this season for me, Caves. What about you, Stu? What was at number 6 for you?
For me, it was Old Friends, New Planets. Um,
Tell us
yeah,
a bit about why that landed higher for you than it did for me in the list.
well, yeah, of course, it was your number 10, wasn't it? So the ending with Tendi, I thought really lifted the whole episode. And whilst I can't disagree with anything you said, it was a complete race to the end. But for me, it still hit the right notes in that race. I'd have
Yeah.
preferred it to have been spread out more over the season, but it still hit all the right notes. And so much like to love about it. I mean, Boimler and Rutherford on the bridge when they see Locarno say, and Rutherford says, "It looks just like Tom Paris." I'm not seeing it. I just the humor was spot on with it. Mariner taking charge on the and I made a mistake in our review. I called it a steam runner class. It's not. It's a much smaller vessel than a steam runner. It's the same size as a Sabre class vessel, and it has its own designation of class. It's a Sabre class. So I got that
Okay.
wrong in our review. There we go. Anyway, looks like a steam runner anyway. Yeah,
For
it's too
correction
small to
printed,
be.
yeah.
Yeah, it's too small to be a steam runner. But yeah, so Mariner sort of taking charge, doing the whole Wrath of Khan thing, um, and Boimler, Captain Boimler, was just a beautiful, beautiful moment for me. So it was just for me there was a huge amount to elevate it. That
Yep,
brought
no,
it up.
I can understand that for sure. Um, in that case, what was your number 5?
One before it, the inner fight.
Okay.
For kind of the same reasons. It sort of it perhaps didn't lead into the following episode as much as it could have, but it still hit huge amounts. I mean, the nostalgia, getting the young Mariner, um, yeah, and of course, like having Wesley Crusher in, that's
Can't go
for
wrong
me
with
is
Wesley.
just
Yeah.
I know not everybody liked his representation in that. But looking at Wind Grace, who I know watches these videos and does his own reviews, yeah, wasn't quite a fan of that. But I just I thought the callbacks to things that have really cemented themselves as part of the Star Trek canon, the whole Nova Squad thing. Yeah, it was just Lower Decks excels when it does callbacks to things, and I felt it was. it was done in a way that's not as heavy-handed as Lower Decks usually does, which just made it really nice. Left us to work stuff out for ourselves rather than
Yeah,
spoon feeding us.
I can see that.
Anyway, yeah. What was your your number five?
Number five was In the Cradle of Vexilon. I thought that this was a really nice development episode for Boimler. I really enjoyed the appearance of Chula, the game from Deep Space Nine, in this episode. Um, that was just, yeah. I've just loved seeing it back. It was great. It was really really well done. And yeah, whilst I wasn't completely convinced about the sort of the repairing the computer plot line on the surface. I think we sort of talked that over a bit in our review episode. But that was a very minor quibble. So this was definitely top half of the standings for me. So a well-earned number five on this one, with the fun and games with Chula and the great sort of Boimler development with a very nice Tallinn assist on the planet with the away teams. So that was that for me. Number four.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. Yeah. Number four for me is Tuvix.
Okay, so coming in
it
just
ranks higher than you.
few places higher. Yeah, we've kind of got it either side of the middle of the pack, effectively. Like it's sort of around the middle for both of us, but falling on different ends. So what elevated it for you, Stu? What got it into the top half?
So whilst, and I 100% understand and recognize the whole Tuvix thing is perhaps overdone for yourself. It has been
my Tuvix fatigue. Yeah.
I get that, but for me, and I still love getting into Tuvix debates, yeah. Which is really bad of me.
No, I think most of fandom is with you, Stu. So I think more people will agree with you than me on the value of this episode.
Oh, I think most people disagree with me when it comes to Tuvix. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
But you can find him in the comments, folks.
To see it actually being addressed in, and not just like the whole that Tuvix happened, but for Mike McMahon or through Lower Decks to actually take a side, to take a stance on the whole Tuvix debate. I think that's an incredibly brave thing to do, given how divisive and passionate fandom gets. And I hats off. I applaud that thoroughly. Plus, what a fantastic love letter to Voyager it was. And in such a way, it in so many ways, it reflected my own opinion. I mean, the Tuvix debate, it definitely reflected my opinions. But kind of like everything that happens on the ship is like batshit crazy. Is very much my take on Voyager. I really like Voyager, but it's by far and away not one of my favorite series. And yeah, I think the way the lens that Lower Decks looked at it through, it felt very at home to me.
And that's a really nice a nice compliment to this episode. It's much easier to evoke fond memories of something you already love than to evoke fond memories of something that you. I mean, when I put words in your mouth, I presume enjoying Star Trek, you probably still very much enjoy Voyager, but something that's not your favorite is it's going to be more work to get there with. So the fact that this episode really checked those boxes for you when it wasn't as easy as maybe a Deep Space Nine throwback would have been that's a really nice compliment to give this episode. I can definitely see why it gets higher up in your rankings as a result. Although very much in agreement with you that it was a wonderful throwback to Voyager, a real treat.
What about you for number four?
I have the inner fight at number four, which in some ways, is almost kind of the real season finale for me because it ties up this great story that Mariner has throughout the season, which in so many respects is kind of the heart and soul of Lower Decks season four, I think, and it pays that off wonderfully with the conversation with the Klingon in the cave. And we have a good, talking of B storylines, we have an entertaining little B storyline of getting the information in the shady canteen for the rest of the team and throwing the original series era alien around the bar. Yeah, I thought that this was the main thing for me was just brilliant payoff for Mariner's story. I don't think this season is anywhere near as good if they botch that or they fumble it somehow. So delivering that and doing it well, and just a great performance from Tawny Newsome. More than enough to put in her fight. And I really feel that sort of these top four episodes that I have are just a step above everything else in the ranking. I enjoyed all of this season, but I really feel like this little top batch are really particularly good, and this is where it starts, that kind of cream of the crop for me of this season. So, yeah, inner fight in at number four for me. The weird Star Trek references that I really wasn't too sure about, my only quibble here.
Okay, interesting. We're into our top three now. I think it'd be interesting for each of us to guess what the other's number one will be without confirming or denying. So
Okay.
I have left, and I'll do them in episode order. I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee, In the Cradle of Vexilon, and Caves. They're the three I have not mentioned yet. What are
I
your
think
three? Oh, yeah. Tell me what you think is going to be my number one first.
so I can remember.
Yeah.
I think your number one will be I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee. That's my guess. So the three that you've not had for me so far are Something Borrowed, Something Green, I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee, and Parth Ferengi's Heart Place.
I'm going to say the same number one for you. I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee.
Okay, so we're
Coming
thinking
at you number one.
there's possibly an agreement at number one, so it'll be interesting
You
because
think
some of our
both
lists
of us are
has been
right?
very very different. So yeah, but let's cross that bridge if and when we come to it. So Stu, start us off. What was your number three for the season?
So at number three, I have no bones yet I must flee. Have a moopsie.
You've got Moopsy,
I've got a
Stu.
moopsie.
Wow.
I've got a plush moopsie. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
at number three for
what a
me.
fantastic episode. Yeah.
It really
Tell
is.
us, what did you like about this one?
I mean, what can I say? Yeah, the whole humor of like the humans in the menagerie thing is such a callback to classic Trek. Um, the concept of Moopsy, just, I mean, who doesn't love a Moopsy now? Am I right?
Can't argue with that. We all love Moopsy now.
And yeah, the one of the things I particularly liked about it was you were getting this attitude from Mariner, and it led you down this path of, oh, Mariner's the one who's released the Moopsy, but it wasn't. And so while she was being unprofessional, she wasn't really being unprofessional. So I thought that it's a subtle kind of thing, but I think it speaks a lot of Mariner, and I think it's something that kind of gave us almost a hint as to where it would go. That, Mariner really does love Starfleet. She loves the people in Starfleet, and that's why she was having such a hard time with it all. All right, she's doing the whole rebellion thing, but actually she's not. She's still Starfleet at heart. So yeah, that maybe I was reading too much into the episode. Who knows?
No, I absolutely see that. Yeah, no, totally agree.
What's your number three?
My number three was Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. I loved seeing Rom and Lita back. I really loved the nostalgia, getting to see those characters on the screen again and getting that little glimpse into what the Ferengi civilization was like in the Nagus Rom era that we've not really seen too much of yet. I take your point. I think you were maybe kind of suggesting when you spoke about this that it doesn't move the bigger stories along too much, because one of the things that I enjoyed in this was the Mariner with her friend storyline that. Yeah, I'd have to give up the point to you though that it's an interesting addition to the Mariner reckless behavior, but it's not really sort of seismically shifting it. So fair enough, I enjoyed it, but I take your point that it is a little bit of a treading water. However, the bits that I really enjoyed the Tendi and Rutherford the tease in this episode, and I see where I see where you're coming from on it, but it really worked for me, and I enjoyed that kind of little prodding of that relationship and where it might go or not go in the future, and what was going on there. But like, just special shout out to Boimler's reality TV addiction in this episode. So yeah, all of that added up got this in at number three. Really lovely to see Chase and Max doing voice work for Star Trek again, and I hope that Lower Decks season 5 continues to just give opportunity for Star Trek alumni to come back and treat us to more of these characters that we love from previous seasons. So that was 3 for me. What about 2 for you, Stu? We're getting very near the top now.
We are so close to the top now. So I've got to say, I really agree with everything you say about that episode. I can't disagree with anything at all, especially about the Ferengi side as well. But one thing does bother, and it was in this episode and Something Borrowed Something Green. Why does Tendi blush red? Now, I know from a technical animation point of view is so we can see it, but she blushed dark green. Anyway.
Yeah. Food for thought. Yeah.
Nitpicky thing. So in it, my number 2 is Caves.
Wow, okay.
Quite as highly for you. I thought it took 2 classic Star Trek things to do. One is, having an episode in a cave, and also a flashback episode, and turned both concepts completely and utterly on their head. So it was both familiar and incredibly fresh and new, and I absolutely loved it. And it had lots of Dr. T'Ana in it, and I've expressed my opinions about Gillian Vigman before. Anyway, moving on.
Oh yeah, I still need to find out what she looks like in non-cat form. Okay, yeah, yeah. I can totally understand why it ranks highly. I can see it very well possibly being a fan favorite for a lot of Lower Decks fans for the reasons that you're giving there. I think what seems there is something special in that episode about how our four main characters click together and the situations they find themselves in, the stories between them, and I can see why that would put it much higher up people's rankings. And yeah, if you're a Dr. Tana fan, it's just like it's immediately accelerated way up the rankings. So
It's like cat, you know.
yeah. um, yeah, very okay. Yeah, no, I can see that.
Okay, what was your number two?
I went with something borrowed, something green for my number two. So this is maybe the biggest gap we had in our comparison rankings here. What were you had that at number nine?
Something borrowed, something green. Was it number nine? Yeah.
I've got it at number two. So this is maybe the biggest disparity we have on where things have wound up on the list. I love the Tendi story and Tendi character development here. Lynn got some really great one-liners and quips, like maybe the best episode of the season for her one-liners and quips, and the kind of girls' adventure of them and Mariner going to Orion and getting to see more of Orion culture, and the interplay between them was just such a treat. I really enjoyed it. But equally as much for me, I love the Mark Twain gag on the holodeck. And the the idea of bringing the Chanov captain and putting him in the Mark Twain situation as a way to resolve the conflict. I love that joke. I think there's good reason why they come back to the Mark Twain thing. I think in two or three other episodes throughout the season, I think it seems to obviously have its fans in the writers' room as well. That gag. So, so yeah, big thumbs up from me for both the A and B plot for this one, and just so fun. Like, you know, part of the appeal of Lower Decks is how much pure joy and fun it can be when it's firing on all cylinders. And I almost feel like I don't, you know, there's not. It's yeah, it was an obvious hit for me. So it's really interesting that we wound up with it being quite far apart in our rankings, but yeah, you know, I hear what you have to say about this one as well. So I can see where the disparity creeps in opinion.
I'm also wondering if a contributing factor is that the Mark Twain thing, I can appreciate it, and I definitely appreciate it as a throwback to TNG's Times Arrow, when they actually met Samuel Clemens and Mark Twain. But it didn't. Yeah, it's not a joke that kind of grabs me.
Yeah, and I can that's a very clear deal breaker, I feel, for how high you're going to push this episode in the rankings for season 4. If it doesn't click with you, that part of it, then I think it immediately has to fall a few pegs, because in some respects it's not quite the entirety of the B storyline, which is more nuanced with Boimler and Rutherford, but it's a very large chunk of it, probably, really. So yeah, totally appreciate that, Stu.
I mean, I actually preferred the Mozart.
Oh yes, yeah.
You know, this is really hard to play. You know?
That was also good fun. I feel like we should have some sort of like crazy like drum roll or trumpet crescendo before number 1 announcements. But failing that, what's your favorite episode from season 4 of Lower Decks, Stu?
Well, now you've given me something to do in editing. My number 1, In the Cradle of Vexilon.
Ooh. So we both had this one reasonably high. Wasn't it number 5 for me, so in the top half? But what put it to the top spot for you, Stu?
seeing how far Boimler's come, his interactions with Tillin and sort of Tillin building him up, supporting him the way she did, was a huge part of it. The whole, hey, it's a computer that runs a world, but it's not gone, mental. Was an interesting, nice take. And for me, so I love lore, I love world building. And as I keep repeating myself on this, Lodex is fantastic at paying an homage, but it's building its own lore right up with things like the koala and the Black Mountain. So having those actually in the episode was joyous to me. Yeah. I've even got I've got all these cabinets with all the starships.
Yeah.
On my my Cerrito shelf, there's a purple koala in the back corner now.
I love that. That's brilliant. Is this an official Star Trek licensed koala, Stu, or just a purple
Nope.
koala?
It's just a random one I found on Amazon.
Awesome. Love it.
Well, the
DIY
squares are
Star Trek
available.
koala. Yeah.
But I thought I've got to have a koala behind the Cerritos.
And Vexilon also gave us what I think possibly a big turning point in the overall lore of the show with Boimler's death and resurrection in this episode, and as you say, the koala visit to the koala room in his what I don't even know how to describe it. It's a very zany psychedelic segment in this episode that feels like it's probably building to something, beyond even a season arc somewhere out in the overall run of Lower Decks. So, perhaps when we look back on this, it will feel even more pivotal as a number one episode for the season because of setting up big things to come for Boimler as well.
Possibly, I get the impression that they're more just kind of rolling with it, like we had in the first season. We had the koala when the guy ascended.
Yeah,
that was when we saw the koala. The Black Mountain was when Shax dies and he's talking to other things like, well, you know about the Black Mountain, don't you? And that was a terrible Shax's voice. But
it wasn't terrible. I got you.
That doesn't have a British accent. Doesn't sound like Brian Blessed. Shax is alive. Yeah. So, but yeah, he just says, "Oh, you know about Black Mountain," and kind of that's it. So it feels like there were just these like throwaway bits that fit really nicely, and it's like, oh, we had this throwaway bit, let's reference that again. And I just think that's absolutely beautiful. It's like, feels like it's evolving rather than being created or leading somewhere. Like it's more of a natural evolution. But I'd love to see more of both. Although that does mean
Absolutely.
more characters dying. So do I really want to see more of both?
Don't get too attached to anyone. Yeah.
And for your number one.
Yeah, we had a correct guess from you here, Stu. I have no bones, yet I must flee. Was in at number one for me. I think you already covered really well what's great about this episode. I see Moopsy smiling at me for my glowing endorsement of his appearance this season, and it's a really fun episode. It's a great slice of Star Trek. As you say, as you mentioned, it's a throwback whilst very much still being its own thing. It's very much Lower Decks, yet it does feel like a callback to TOS in many ways. We get really, this episode is really feels like things beginning to ramp up and really the arc of Mariner's reckless behavior, starting with the quarrel with Ransom in this episode. This is a really nice setup for that, and that storyline for me carries a lot of weight in this season. So this, it kicks it up a couple of notches in the rankings, and I think the uh, yes, the promotion storyline with Tandy and Rutherford, talking of perhaps less contrived moments between the two of them that are nice relationship moments for them. I really enjoyed that in this episode as well. Outside of what you've already discussed, but otherwise, I think you've covered it really nicely. What was great about this one, so yeah, just a thumbs up from me as well, and a couple of places higher in the rankings, but in total agreement as to the substance of why it deserves to be well considered this season.
Yeah, can't disagree with any of that. I think it's a well-deserved place. I actually thought originally that was going to make my number one.
Oh, so I was close with my
I
guess,
did
but
think it
not
was,
quite.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But then Cradle of Excellence just tipped over with it. One little fun fact of I have no bones that I must flee, which I meant to mention when we did our review episode, and it passed and never came up. We see an Aldebaran serpent in it. There is a shot looking down at like various cases around. The only other time we've seen one is when Q appeared as one on the Enterprise bridge in Encounter at
Ooh,
Farpoint.
good catch, Stu. I had not spotted that, so that's a nice little Easter egg in this one.
Really is. So it's this, glowing orb with three serpent like cobra heads coming from it. I mean, it's a very bizarre thing. But yeah, he says, "You're no Captain Q." Actually, that was a pretty good pick out.
That
He
was,
says,
yeah.
"Neither am I an Aldebaran serpent, but you accepted me as such." So yeah, that's the only time an Aldebaran serpent's been referenced in Star Trek, I believe, until we've just seen one in the menagerie there. So that was okay, it's little. Every time I watch Lower Decks, I see something new. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and
Absolutely brilliant.
there's so much packed into these episodes. I would love to see in the comments actually if we've missed anything in our reviews and chats about this season. Tell us if there's any more Easter eggs that you've noticed of callbacks to previous Star Treks, or any just small little hidden gems that we've not found. Always fun. There's always a ton of them in Lower Decks. Fun to spot them and to pick them out where they pop up. So yeah, tell us in the
It
comments.
definitely is, and I'd love to hear as well what their top 10 ranking
Yeah.
is, how well it matches either of ours, or is it completely different again? That's it for Star Trek for this year for us. How sad. Um,
Sad.
yeah.
What are you looking forward to next year for Star Trek, Stu?
Oh, Discovery, of course. Well, I'm sort of looking forward. Discovery is for me quite an important series. I've watched it kind of the moment it's released, every single one. Thoroughly loved all of Discovery. So the fact it's the last season is going to be quite emotional for me. I suspect. So we'll see. I think we'll probably be doing good, bad, and batshit on
Yeah,
that.
looking
What do you
forward to it.
reckon?
That sounds
Um,
fun. Yeah, let's get back to it.
we can't have the spore drivers the batshit for every episode, though. Just saying now. Or
Maybe we can do
floating
a
nacelles.
maybe we can do a good bat ship for the entire run of Discovery and have it as the bat ship for the entire franchise. It's
I mean, you can just
possibilities.
say Discovery is batshit. I mean, because it really is. But yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. I think we've got plans in mind for a couple of other things we want to look at as well next year, haven't we? It's going to be a busy
Yes,
time.
indeed. Yeah, and
And of course,
Destination
our
Star Trek in real life as well.
destination Star Trek in Birmingham. No, not in Birmingham, in Blackpool next year. Yes, a place I
A
swore I
different
would
beat.
never return to. Um, It's yeah, it's an interesting place, is Blackpool. But it's
I thought
worth
you were going to
it's
go
a
with
trek.
it's a long story, but that was just as good.
Oh, there's a history, but yeah, we'll come to that. Anyway, how about yourself? What's your Star Trek look ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think Discovery is the headline act for next year, and quite rightly. I think whether people have liked the show or not, there is very little argument over the fact that its success in terms of having a big viewership and garnering at Netflix the audience that it wanted to get from that show is just absolutely pivotal in Star Trek history in terms of ushering in this second golden era of Star Trek. And I think it's really important that even if you don't like that series for whatever reason, that you can acknowledge that that's the case, because I really don't think there's much argument there. I think, whatever your feelings on it, it has the right to be recognized as the show that started that off. And I mean, very directly in season 2 set up Strange New Worlds, which is perhaps, I mean, it's like maybe a contentious statement, but perhaps the most universally beloved of all the Star Trek. I don't know what to call it, the second golden era of Star Trek that we're now in. I get the impression that Strange New Worlds is arguably sort of the most consensus forming favorite show of the fan base at this point in Star Trek history. And Discovery very directly set up that show in season 2 of its run. So I think there are a lot of reasons, whatever your feelings about it, to recognize that it coming to an end is the end of a significant part of Trek history. And I think that I think yeah, we all hope that it gets a good send off, because it's had a difficult history of going through a very large number of showrunners in a relatively short run. It didn't go the 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine or Voyager or Next Generation. It's going to be going out on 5. And I think I'm right in saying that within the first 4 seasons, they had 4 or 5 showrunners working on it. So that is tough to build the kind of consistent long arc, long character development, build the formula that we expect Star Trek shows to deliver. And Discovery's done such a wonderful job in the face of that challenge of delivering something very unique and meaningful in Star Trek canon. So yeah, lots of reasons to be excited for that final season, and a big fingers crossed that it gets just a really awesome send off, because it'll be really well deserved.
Definitely. We'll be there looking at that next year. And yeah, like I say, that's it. That's it for Star Trek shows on this channel for until next year. Mainly because I need to go off and do I need to do a lot of work in December. I always work very hard in December. It's the only time I work hard, but yeah. Yeah, so really looking forward to next year and seeing what's coming up. We'll have lots of things, so do watch this space. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're going to be having our Frasier 2023 reviews, of course, for the rest of this season to go. I think we've got, was it 3 more episodes?
That sounds right to me. Yeah, I think we've got 8, 9, and 10 to go on that. Yeah,
10 to go. So yeah, so we'll be.
And we know that Roz is going to be in one of them, Stu.
We do, and we know Lilith's going to be in another. So yeah.
Yes.
Oh, was that a spoiler?
Wait, no,
sorry.
wait. She. I'm getting confused by the order we record things in, Stu. Has she just been, or is she still just coming up?
So spoilers for any of our viewers who, yes, Lilith has just been in one. She's in 2 episodes.
Oh, wow. Stu, I don't know how I missed this news. So, well, that's me really happy
Spoilers, sorry.
because, yeah. Well, yeah, if you've not watched our Frasier episode, I talked about how I'd really like to see Lilith recur on the show more often than she did in the previous one. And I'm apparently getting this wish this season and didn't even know it. So
It's
that's me happy for today. Yeah.
brilliant. People are going to watch that and think you're a genius, mate.
You must have been like, oh, he's really sort of playing the underhanded game on this one. You know, he already knows this is happening, and here he is talking as though, and genuinely, no, just didn't have a clue that she was back for a second one this season. But happy news.
It really is. But anyway, in the meantime, until next year, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, no matter how you choose to celebrate. And of course, Happy New Year. Until 2024, peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.